Broke the news that another witness from the investigation that led to the firing of former Ohio State marching band director John Waters has come forward. She is claiming tonight that OSU investigators misrepresented and omitted her words in their final report. NBC4's Harrison Hove continues to get answers on this continually developing story. Harrison?
Cabot, NBC4 did obtain a letter sent to OSU President Dr. Michael Drake. That letter is from witness Rebecca DiMattia, who made it abundantly clear OSU investigators botched her quotes and omitted much information that could conflict with their own findings. A strongly worded letter. A 5-year marching band member and one of 5 alumni interviewed by OSU investigators says, quote, "I want to express dissatisfaction regarding how my statements were presented in the report." In their final report into the so-called sexualized culture of the Ohio State marching band, OSU investigators wrote that band director John Waters cursed at Rebecca DiMattia after she turned in what was supposed to be an anonymous midseason evaluation. DiMattia says, quote, "At no point did I indicate to the investigator that Mr. Waters cursed directly at me, as the report states." DiMattia goes on to say, quote, "The idea that he, Jonathan Waters, would be dismissive of sexual harassment is absurd." She goes on to say Mr. Waters personally helped in tough situations, yet as far as I can see, the entirety of that was excluded from the report. Marching band brought many smiles, and you can see DiMattia here during her marching band days. In her letter, she writes, quote, "In my discussion with the investigator, I specifically noted that at no point did I feel unsafe or sexually harassed." As a squad leader, she was privy to special training the most senior marching band members receive. She says, quote, "I can tell you the elimination of hazing, alcohol abuse, and overall cultural change were items that Mr. Waters worked very hard to achieve." She calls out Ohio State for a complete willingness by the university to simply ignore evidence, finally asking the university to, quote, "correct its rushed actions by reinstating Jonathan Waters." Rebecca DiMattia is now the second marching band alumni interviewed by OSU investigators to come forward with claims that investigators misrepresented her words in their final report. You may remember Jocelyn Smallwood. She came forward on August 1st, said she felt investigators' questions and her answers did not represent what ended up being in that final report. Now, all new tonight at 6, NBC4 implicates more OSU officials and their knowledge of Midnight Ramp. We'll, of course, have that for you. For now, Harrison Hove, NBC4.
All right, Harrison. This is a story that we have been following since the beginning, bringing you in-depth coverage of all the angles. And to see all the stories we've done since the minute John Waters was fired, head to NBC4i.com. There are more questions tonight about the validity of an investigation into conduct and culture within the Ohio State marching band. A former band member who is referenced in the report that led to the firing of band director John Waters talked to NBC4 about the claims contained in it. Claims she says are one-sided and taken out of context. NBC4's Mike Bowersock has her story. A warning, though, some of what you're about to hear is graphic in nature.
Parts of the report read like 50 Shades of Scarlet and Gray.
Someone comes from the outside, and if they don't get the context, a lot of the things in that report sound so bad. But I could give you context for all of them.
Lindsay Berry knows all about some of those things. She was a mellophone player between 2007 and 2010. That's her next to the Elvis impersonator on the right. She's the one in the report called ERV, which stood for Eero Vibrator. She was part of the report's evidence of a highly sexualized culture. She says parts of the report are not only taken out of context, but outright lies. For example, first-year band members are required to do a rookie trick. Most, she says, are just silly.
I felt incredibly
and what the university claims to be a thorough report, there are claims she had to pretend to be a vibrating sex toy.
Did you ever pretend to be a vibrating sex toy?
Never. Never. And I will say that when they gave me my name, my rookie name, I was worried that my rookie trick would be like that.
But it wasn't. It was this.
So my rookie trick, which is obviously not to pretend to be a vibrating sex toy, was to go, shake your bonbon, shake your bonbon.
That's it.
That was it.
Something done, she says, to entertain the other members and get a laugh. And partially because of that, which happened before John Waters was director, he was fired.
Blatantly speaking, this is lying.
That's a lie in the report, for sure.
Even though the report talks about her, no one ever talked to her. And she says she's not the only one.
I'm still a very proud member of the Ohio State Marching Band and an alumni of it. I never felt harassed. I never felt demeaned. I never felt like a female in the marching band. I just felt like a marching band member. And a lot of people are upset because I know a couple of the other females who've come out say this is the first time we've ever felt sexualized, is because of this report.
She says some of the claims about the other members having to do with sexually suggestive acts. She knew them. They were friends. She says she never saw it happen. The new OSU president, Michael Drake, has not taken questions about this, even though we have tried to interview him about it, nor has he met with alumni who wanted to talk to him about it. The university posted a video statement from him last Thursday. We are expecting John Waters to break his silence about this soon. I'm Mike Bowersock, NBC4.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Well, we have heard from the band twice, even this weekend, but tonight for the first time we're hearing not from Jonathan Waters, but from the man closest to him right now, his attorney, David Axelrod. Our coverage of the Ohio State band scandal continues tonight with claims that Waters was a scapegoat, that the culture in question existed for years and years. In his first televised sit-down interview tonight, David Axelrod, the attorney for fired OSU band director John Waters, lashed out against the report and the process that put the most celebrated band director in the country out of work, specifically taking issue with the investigation itself.
Out of 225 band members, the university interviewed exactly 4, including the person who made the complaint. They interviewed five alumni out of the thousands of local alumni that were available to them and would have talked to them. The witnesses that they interviewed were referred to them by the individual who made the complaint. This investigation is horribly flawed and is based on an embarrassingly small sample of students.
His other big point, he not only didn't tolerate what was going on, he worked to stop it.
What he did do when he took this job was he attempted to stop what he perceived to be inappropriate behavior. You know, he experienced inappropriate behavior himself as a rookie band member, and he would tell you he was deeply affected by that, and that's one of the reasons why when he came into a position of authority at the band, he did everything he could to end practices that some might find offensive.
The university saying it wasn't enough. You don't agree, obviously.
Well, you know, I don't think the university really has paid much attention to what he did. You know, as I said, the report is incomplete.
Axelrod says Waters provided the university a list of things he did to change the culture, a list, he says, that wasn't included in the OSU report. As for the firing itself. When I talked to you last week, you said he was in shock. He did not expect this to happen the way it happened, did not expect this to end the way it ended. It happened on that day just like that. How's he doing now?
Well, as you can imagine, he's absolutely distraught. This happened less than a week ago. As you said, it was a great shock. He had met with the university provost a week before and left that meeting believing that he would keep his job. He was summoned into the provost's office last Tuesday. He was notified to be there Wednesday morning and was summarily told that he could either resign or be fired, and had until 5 p.m. that day to make the decision.
The investigation only lasted 2 months, but keep in mind the university was required to finish its investigation and act on it within 60 days. That's part of Title IX federal legislation meant to bring parity at the university level. But Axelrod says doing nothing and firing him were not the only options. He could have been suspended. He could have had to go through some sort of training, but they let him go. This is a story where we won't stop asking the critical questions. We're working to get you answers, and we will all week. We're working to hear from Betty Montgomery, who will head up the second investigation. And we want to hear from President Drake himself. And there's the question of who will be the next band director as well. We are your source for OSU coverage. If you want to get the latest, always go to NBC4i.com.
NBC4 is breaking new information tonight as we continue our investigation into the OSU band scandal.
Yeah, confirmation that one of the events at the center of the original Waters report, the Midnight Ramp, was both known about by high-ranking university officials and, in fact, attended for years by members of the Ohio State University Police.
NBC4's Harrison Hove is here now with today's developments. Harrison?
Ellie, the so-called Midnight Ramp has been around for decades. Band members march into the stadium in their underwear under stadium lights. Now, the OSU report right here says that before 2010, students returned at midnight to the SHU to perform the tradition without any staff supervision. But tonight, the band alumni I spoke to are telling a very different story.
There was no real interaction. They were just there, lining the field and around the stadium just to make sure everyone was safe.
The Ohio State Police Department, front and center inside the SHU, watching band members march at midnight, many in their underwear.
They just would stand on the sidelines from what I can remember, and, they were smiling, laughing. They thought it was fun like we did.
Annabelle Malcolm says she
did go in my underwear, but it was, it was more full coverage type stuff.
James Lang participated in Midnight Ramp for 5 years, all with an OSU police presence.
More than two? Well, more than two. Yeah.
More than five?
More than five. More than five. I wouldn't say there were 20. I would say single digits, higher single digits, maybe more.
Malcolm even remembers the scoreboard lights and animations.
The scoreboard was lit up. I do remember that. It had a custom message on there that said Midnight Ramp. And I believe as we started the ramp entrance, the scoreboard was playing exactly what they would do during a regular game.
A scoreboard with custom graphics operated by OSU athletics and facilities personnel. So just to be clear, OSU police watching the Midnight Ramp, these statements corroborate a 7-page document submitted to OSU investigators in mid-July from fired band director Jonathan Waters himself, implicating OSU police and the athletic department in their knowledge of Midnight Ramp. That 7-page document, written by Waters, was not utilized in the final report by OSU investigators. Harrison Hove, NBC4.
All right, Harrison, thank you. And we have been following this story since the report on the Ohio State band came out last month. You can see the report and see our past stories, including Harrison's interview with Dr. Michael Drake on NBC4i.com. It's one of our top stories.
Well, it is game week for the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Ohio State Marching Band. And as the band gets ready for Saturday's Navy game with an interim director at the helm, a former director is speaking out about the firing of John Waters.
Dr. Paul Drosty stood on the podium as the band director for more than a decade, and he says the fallout for what he calls a poor decision could be felt for some time to come. It's an interview you will see only on 4.
So many hundreds of band students and thousands of band alums were, attacked by this report. Its reputation has been smeared.
Do you feel personally like you were smeared a little bit by what came out in this investigation?
I think I might have been smeared a lot rather than a little bit.
Dr. Paul Drosty has a long history with Ohio State. He marched with his euphonium in 1954, began as an assistant director in 1966, taking over as director in 1970. Over the next 14 seasons, he took the best damn band in the land to a dozen bowl games. In 1973, he was in charge when Title IX opened the doors to the first female members. 5 made the band that first year, and the numbers slowly grew. He admits there were antics and sophomoric behavior that would not be tolerated today, but he believes the recent investigation painted a broad, unsubstantiated brushstroke of a sexualized culture that was unfair to the majority of band members of his era and certainly to John Waters.
Waters could have been the solution rather than the problem. I mean, I think he had a feel for the band, the feel for the culture, the respect of the members of the band, and he did probably more in his 2 years as director to affect the culture than many of us did in many more years.
It's important to point out that the marching band is actually under the control of the athletic department. So I asked Dr. Drosty about sources I'd heard from who thought there were those in the music department who may not have been happy how Waters got the position of director.
The position is normally filled by the School of Music. My understanding is that Gordon Gee acted and announced John Wood's retirement, maybe before John was ready to retire, and appointed John Waters as the interim.
After a high-profile and innovative halftime show became a YouTube sensation, Drosty tells me Dr. Gee removed the interim part of Waters' title.
So the School of Music probably was not particularly involved in his hiring,
and he is not somebody the wrong way.
And Waters is not School of Music faculty. He does not have a faculty position.
Nonetheless, Dr. Drosty says he's not happy with what has happened, and neither are many band alumni, putting a hold on their donations.
The deed has been done, and we're trying to undo the deed. But until something is definitely settled, I think most of the checkbooks are going to stay closed.
Now, Dr. Drosty says the band will continue to be outstanding, and the alumni band will remain strong and committed to representing Ohio State with excellence. Speaking of checkbooks, tomorrow at 6, I speak with a man who earned 3 degrees from Ohio State, has had a very successful 40-year business career, and is about to make a multi-million-dollar donation. But he tells me he has changed his mind about a far larger contribution because of the Waters firing. That's tomorrow at 6.
Well, members of the best damn band in the land are focused on their show, of course, for this Saturday's opening game against Navy in Baltimore.
But many Buckeye fans, including alumni, are still focused on the OSU band scandal. Cabot Ray joins us now with the story of the financial impact here. Cabot?
That's right. Fred Portner graduated with 3 degrees in business and engineering from OSU in 1964, 65, and 66. He spent 40 years as a CFO and executive vice president in major U.S. banks, then in financial consulting and insurance consulting. And he and his wife, who he met at OSU, have come into a significant investment windfall. When he was asked to sponsor a new honors program at OSU's Fisher School, he was all in.
I met a couple of kids that are in the program, and geez, I mean, that just blew me away.
And though upset over the firing of John Waters and how it was handled, it was for those kids that OSU business and engineering alum Fred Portner says he and his wife Maxine chose to follow through with a $5 million commitment to the new Fisher School Integrated Business and Engineering Honors Program. I made a call, and a Fisher School spokesperson confirmed how grateful they were for Fred and Maxine Portner's gift. But
behind it is probably $150 million that we have fallen into our laps in the last year, and we plan to put all of that in a foundation, with the vast majority of it potentially going to Ohio State.
And you're not sure now?
Oh, I'm very certain. I would not. I've been in senior level business situations all my life. I think I know decision makers and poor decision makers. And the way this decision on John Waters has been handled is abominable. I said to myself, do I want them making those kinds of decisions on major donations I would make? And the answer is absolutely not.
Very strong words from a potentially major donor. Mr. Portner tells me he's already sent a letter to President Drake and is open to hearing from him or other leadership on the Board of Trustees. He says he remains loyal to Ohio State, the Buckeyes, and even though he was never a member of the band, he says he'll know that both will remain superb when he flies in for the Virginia Tech home opener.
And I expect the marching band to march its socks off.
Now, I asked for and received a response from OSU this afternoon, and Michael Eicher, the Senior Vice President for Advancement Rights, all of us at the university are deeply grateful to Mr. and Mrs. Portner for their remarkable generosity and support of business and engineering students, alumni, and friends give to the university according to shared values and alignment of purpose. We appreciate the Portner's investment in the lives of young people and look forward to their continued engagement with the university. Also, a quick clarification to the interview that I did with former director Paul Drosty last night. I reported the marching band is under athletic department control. In fact, only the logistics of travel and ticket sales fall under the athletic department. Oversight of the marching band still comes from the School of Music. Dwayne and Ellie.